Welcome to this press conference. We will do it in Danish and English, and there will be translation, Danish, France, and English. And now I will give the floor to Ida Auken.
Mange tak.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. The Danish EU presidency has 4 priorities for its presidency, and one of them is to create a green Europe. And the points that we have on our agenda for this council meeting have exactly to do with that, creating a green Europe. So we have been working on the 7th Environmental Action Programme today, which is to lay down the framework for the next 8 years of environmental policy in the EU. But in fact, we want a vision through to 2050. And I think it's extremely positive that today's discussion at a time of economic crisis was not about viewing the move to a green economy as a problem, something which you cannot do or something which is very difficult to do. No, on the contrary, everybody was very positive looking at the opportunities afforded by a green economy throughout the whole debate today. It was very clear to hear it's very good to hear all the countries saying that the green economy affords opportunities of developing our economy and saving money, so that we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, try and address the economic crisis, but also the resources and climate crisis. I think that clearly came through in what all the ministers were saying today. So in discussing the 7th EAP, we focused on 2 main areas. First of all, something which is extremely important, implementation of existing legislation. That's the first thing. The Commission pointed out that if we were able to make a start in implementing some of the existing legislation, we could make tremendous savings and create maybe 400,000 jobs. So it makes a lot of sense to implement what we have already agreed. And then the second main focus was to try and make progress on some new areas where we haven't perhaps made as much headway as we would have liked. Climate adaptation, for example, chemicals, where we still have to deal with endocrine disruptors and the cocktail effects, and nanomaterials. These are areas where more work is required. And there's the whole question of cities and the role of the urban environment and the contribution that cities can make. And, of course, how we can achieve our biodiversity goals. That's another important issue. At the same time, as I say, we want to create a green economy in Europe, and that means that environmental policy has to be at the heart of our economic policy. Economic policy is tremendously dependent on the availability of resources for production and for human welfare. Our economy is affected by the damage we cause to the environment. Air pollution means significant costs in terms of human health, and that's all extremely expensive in economic terms. And water shortages, that's another thing that can damage our economy, along with other factors as well. And we have heard about drought, not just in Portugal and Spain in Europe today, but also in the UK, in many different areas in Europe. So today I think there was a large measure of agreement to the effect that in spite of the economic crisis, the green economy is not just one way forward among others. It's the only way forward for our economies if we want to enjoy growth in the future. And I think there was a very clear signal sent out by today's meeting. And of course, the presidency, as I say, has a green Europe as a top priority for its presidency. And therefore, we're very happy at the outcome of today's debate. Thank you.
Commissioner Potocnik.
Thank you. In English, of course. I'm pretty much impressed by the discussion which was today held by the ministers in the room about the 7th Environmental Action Programme. By the way, we are in preparation phase. Currently, we are running a public consultation which will be closed in May, and we will propose the 7th Environmental Action Programme somewhere till the end of the year. One thing where we basically all agree is, of course, that the situation when we were preparing the last one that was it was adopted in the year 2002, and the situation today are different. At that time, there were quite a lot of gaps still in legislation. Today, that's not the case. While on the other hand, in the past, we did not understand some of the problems which we are today understanding much better concerning the environmental challenges. So, 7th Environmental Action Program certainly can't be just continuation of the 6th Environmental Action Program. It should take into consideration the new environment in which we are preparing it and the new knowledge which we have acquired in the meantime. We have the last few years focused a lot on the 3 major areas of climate change, then biodiversity, how to address the issue of disappearing biodiversity, and the third area was also the area of resources. And we all agreed down there in the room that basically these are exactly the areas on which we should continue also our development. In 7th Environmental Action Program, we should not repeat the things, but rather focus, rather make a kind of a synthesis and vision, because as Ida already said, we are not answering only to the questions of tomorrow, but basically we want to create a longer-term view, which are the challenges and how to be addressed. From the Commission side of view, there are absolutely 2 priorities which needs to be addressed. On one hand, one is, again, already mentioned, implementation, because environment is only as good as we really implement the legislation in practice, not how good legislation we actually have, but how it's implemented. And the second, it's connected to the integration of environmental policy into the rest of policies, be it economic, be it, I don't know, investment, research policies, agricultural, fisheries, transport, and so on and so on. So this integration is an extremely important part of our job on which we will have to focus. We also all agreed that all this would need to fit well into discussions of the next financial perspective, which are currently very much intensified and will be focused in the next year very much from the Member States and European Parliament. Finally, green economy and economic crisis. I think that it's pretty much clear to everybody, or it's becoming clear to everybody, that green economy is not a kind of reaction through which we would, due to the understanding of the limits of environment, try to address or stop some of economic growth. On the contrary, brown growth in itself has its limits to the growth because it's not taking enough into consideration environmental and social concerns. That's why we are trying to create conditions for the growth in future. Growth which would be much more inclusive and much more sustainable. I think that through the resource efficiency, we are practically giving exactly that response, because it makes very much economic sense to produce a product with using less energy, using less water, using less raw materials, produce products and services which can be reusable and recyclable. So I think that's the new philosophy which we are behind. It's a new philosophy which basically we don't have alternative, but it is something which obviously, if treated and approached well, it's the major economic opportunity. And those times which we are living in are exactly the times when we are searching for those opportunities. Thank you.
And now questions are welcome. There will be a microphone, and please be kind to present yourself before asking the question. Anyone? Jesper?
My name is Jesper Ravn from the Danish News Agency. Well, it appears that you seem to agree on almost all issues, but have there been any crunch issues today that produced disagreement among ministers?
It was informal council. So normally I was happy with a lot of common understanding and political will which was there in the room to address all those issues. Of course, when we will come with concrete proposals, I do expect that some of the questions will be more discussed than today. For example, how far you go, I don't know, in setting targets in specific areas. You know that always there are different views and different kind of judgments on those questions. But I think we are very well, if we would compare the situation now to some half a year, 1 year ago, where we are with the 7th Environmental Action Program, we are really focusing. The understanding what would need to be in the center, I think, is reached. And with the help of the Danish presidency, actually, I think we are getting and shaping a document where major agreement of all of us, it's there. It was some time ago still pretty much not non-defined paper. Now we are seeing the shape, and we believe also very much the substance.
Man kan måske tilføje.
Maybe I could just add this. As the discussion develops, then the question might arise of how quickly we want to try and move forward. The pace of developments. Now, the 6th program obviously expires on the 1st of July, so we don't have that much time. And on top of that, we have to attend the Rio conference in June, and therefore it's very appropriate that the EU be ready with some kind of roadmap for a green economy so that we can show the other countries at the conference that we are taking this seriously when we talk about moving towards a sustainable, a green economy. And then thirdly, you know, if you look around, you can see from the price of resources over the last 10 years, there has been a significant increase, much greater than they fell over the previous century. So there's tremendous pressure to move forward and to move forward swiftly if we want to be secure in terms of resources for the future, if we want to have our citizens have the necessary resources, then we have to take action, because if we delay action, then it becomes more difficult and more expensive to act in the future. So it's high time that we move forward, that we adopt this program. But of course, as the Commissioner said, the situation today is different from 10 years ago when the previous program was adopted, because there's a clear understanding now that a green economy offers opportunities rather than limitations. So there's been a switch round in the way in which these subjects are discussed today. It used to be the environment ministers who had to really try and persuade their other fellow ministers of the relevance of some of the issues, but now the situation has changed. We can show that it is moving to a green economy which will make it cheaper to produce, and we can work together with other countries that are facing the same problems as well. Green technologies and green portfolios, these are the areas of growth for the future, even through the crisis, whereas other areas saw significant decline. So there is scope for growth in the greening of the economy. And of course, we look forward to the discussion in June, but there can be no doubt that as far as the presidency is concerned, it is very appropriate to take action now.
Other questions? Yes?
Aminata Niang, Agence Europe. Il me semble que
It seems to me that the environment ministers initially wanted to extend the health and environment program. Now there, you said that there will be a health aspect. Not much has been done for chemicals. Could you just make it a little clearer what's going to happen? There's been the REACH legislation. What do you intend to do in the area of health specifically?
Med hensyn til miljø.
Okay, with respect to environment and health, there are 3 areas which still require more clarification and more proper regulation. The whole area of endocrine disruptors, for example. This is an area where we see teenagers reaching puberty too early. We can see babies being born with problems in their sexual organs. And we can see that the quality of semen is deteriorating year after year. So this is an area which we must address. Another area is the cocktail effects, as we call them, or the combination effects. And here, if you look at all the sources, what we inhale, what we have on our clothing, and what we eat, and look at the combined effect of all of those, the cocktail effect, well, then the effect on our health may be greater than if you take the different sources and substances individually. And then thirdly, there's the whole question of nanomaterials, where we also need to make more progress than we have made so far. So those are the areas where we feel that the 7th programme can try and address some of the relevant issues. I don't know if the Commissioner wants to add anything on that question.
Basically not. I think that's something which I've heard very well also down there in the room. Thank you.
More questions? Okay. Thank you all for coming. See you again tomorrow.